Hit record whenever you're ready.
Yep.
Okay, recorder's on. Go for it.
Hey, this is Jessica L from jessicaL.com, and you are listening to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, reminding you to always take the road less traveled.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, there's a poem about that.
Or something.
Or something. All right, I'm going to hit stop. I'll be right back.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Sheila Buswell, thank you so much for being on Vroom Vroom Veer and welcome to the show. How's it going?
Great. Thanks for having me. Jeff, it's been great to listen to you and to just talk like we have. So yeah, I'm really excited to be here.
So we've already had some fun. So maybe the outtakes will be on the end of the show. We'll see. I always like it when that happens, when somebody just starts talking. That's great. Okay. So anyway, you are at buswellbiomedical.com and you also wrote a book. So we'll talk about that too, but talk a little bit about what you're most excited about today.
So today we built a prototype, finished it, and now we're just testing
Nice.
The weight and this specifically trying to optimize that prototype. But I'm really excited to find out the speed at different weights and how that drops off and things like that. Although I'm just going to mention that if you order 500 pounds of weights delivered to your house, you're not the best friend of the person who's delivering the package.
Been there, done that. Yes. I actually bought a 50-pound kettlebell and I think it was the post office or UPS or whoever was delivering it rang my bell and said, "You're the asshole that bought this big heavy thing. You're going to carry it out of my truck." And I was like, okay, concur. You're not wrong. Wow. 500. My goodness. I hope it came in pieces.
Yeah, it's like 10-pound increments or something, but it's like so many boxes,
yeah.
And
it's
the
like
guy
delivering
had
weights to a gym. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So what is this device built to do? Talk a little bit about it because it seems really interesting.
So the idea is that, like, right now when you're in a hospital, you press a button to conduct any of the activities of daily living, like toileting. And so this thing will use like a Roomba LiDAR, and it'll come to you and drop a harness or drop a nylon strap that you hook to a harness that's totally like accustomed to your movement and totally, knows you as a person, like not knows you as a person, like your aspirations, your dreams, your dreads,
It knows
like
your
things like
weight
that.
and
But
shape. Yes.
well, yeah, exactly.
As your body is a physical object, it understands that. Yeah. Kind of like a car
And
molding to your ass. Yes. I like it.
yes, exactly.
Okay.
But without the judgment of whether that's a nice ass or not. But like
Right.
this will allow patients to conduct the activities of daily living, like toileting, independently.
Right.
So that a person can, and safely, like the person and the healthcare worker. Because I don't know about you, but I don't like to go to the bathroom with a bunch of people or like a witness or I don't need any of that.
Yeah.
So
I get it.
that's this device will allow patients to conduct these activities of daily living and then prevent them from falling.
Right.
But if the worst should happen, it won't allow you to get injured falling. That's why we had the weights, because we need to be able to stop a range of weights. And what speed can we do that?
Okay.
And so I don't, I can.
Right.
We have a chief medical officer, and I'm like, okay, well, is this fast enough? And like that's kind of stuff, because I want to make it go as fast as possible. But the lady whose bones are made of chalk doesn't want to be pulled up like a piñata at light speed.
So you're kind of like myth-bustering yourself a solution here. I love it. It's great.
I hope, yes.
Okay, so let's go back in time. This is Vroom Vroom Veer. You were in the Army for a while, and you had a scholarship that you lost. So Let's talk about that story. So you're in high school, you're getting ready to graduate, you get a scholarship, but then something happens and you don't have a scholarship anymore. Or what happened?
So I had a departmental scholarship for the mechanical engineering, but a criteria of that scholarship was that I maintain a 3.8 GPA
Oh,
in
wow.
engineering. So I didn't
pretty
keep that
high.
scholarship.
Yeah.
It is really high, but and you know what? I learn this all the time now. But people who get that scholarship, not a lot keep it for the
Really?
exact same reason.
Wow.
But they don't talk about
super
it.
competitive then. Yeah, yeah.
Well, and it was weird. Like you were in the military too. I don't know your reasoning actually for why you entered the military.
Right.
I know that you were in the UP,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I was.
But
Yes.
and then so I understand exit velocity.
Yes.
I don't imagine
part of it.
June was your issue. It was probably January. I
Right.
don't know.
Right.
I don't know any of that part, right? But I know that where you came from.
Right.
And so, like, I thought, oh, I'll enter the military. And I don't, it was totally go to the army, go to jail time frame, right? So I was BO, you can be army. And that was, oh, okay, I'll do this. But it was like when I lost my scholarship, I tried to stay in school and I worked at night. So I worked full time at night and then I went to school during the day full time. I didn't sleep near enough.
Right.
I didn't, I wasn't healthy.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah,
and I
you're
would
not
fall
taking care of
asleep.
yourself. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And
It's
I
kind of
think,
hard to learn anything when you're sleep deprived. It's hard to do anything when you're sleep deprived.
well, like I would fall asleep all the time and there was a class lecture. I really liked the professor. Like he was very entertaining and it was an important lecture. So I was trying to stay awake and, I'll sit in the front and I was asleep before the guy even entered. I left when he was walking out and I had this moment and I'm sure there was drool all over my face. But I also realized like, I
I'm wasting
missed this
time
whole,
here. Yeah.
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 So at that time I was like, something's got to give. And I went for a long run and I thought, well, I like to run. And I'll just do the military thing. And then go back to school. That was always kind of my North Star to go back to school. And I think we talked before about even though I had a North Star, leaving the military is really hard, like making that transition.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think it's a
There's
transition
a sense of security that you get. Like once you kind of get your groove going, right? Even on a shitty day, you're going to have a place to eat and sleep and, after a while, it just becomes normal, even if it sucks.
Yeah. And I I think that I learned this a great deal in the military, but having your own sucking, like going through and muddling and then knowing you're alone doing it is different than like, you have like when you enter the military, you're getting, but you go through basic with other people. You're not alone in that.
You're never alone.
But when
you're never
transition,
alone. Right.
yes. When you transition, it's my battle buddy for the most of the time in the military was, I was on one side of the country and she was in the other. Like I was in San Diego and she was in New York. Okay. And we talked every day. It sucks to leave the military. It's hard. But I think everybody can do hard things, but it's
the
instrumental.
Is it's a little tricky. Some more than others. Yeah. I went through that too. I mean, after I did the thing, most retirees get hired for what I like to call the Rolodex years. So you can almost have a job where they'll just pay you a lot of money to do almost nothing. And what they're trying to do is, find other people to hire. So they're just saying, hey, do you know this guy? Hey, do you know that guy? Hey, do you know this guy? And they're just trying to pick your brain for other contacts, So it doesn't really matter what you do. I had two of those jobs.
I don't know how to put this, but I think, and this goes into your context, like the Vroom Vroom Veer, like the transitions are difficult and uncomfortable.
Totally.
But I think transitioning from the military back to civilian life really prepared me or made it seem like these other great transitions weren't that big of a deal.
That's true.
And I was more steadily veering or yeah.
You're more, the volume goes down on like your ordinary civilian life kind of challenges. That's true.
Yeah.
Like, especially like if you go through something like really, really trying, like a depression or suicide attempts, like once you survive something really, really trying, like a really big life veer, like, not being able to make rent 1 month, the volume goes down on that, that's bad. I'll work it out.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I think that happens as you age too. You accumulate these things that are like, yeah, it's not that big of a deal. Just walk it off or whatever.
Right.
And it's comparatively, I mean, I don't know, you're not going to complain about your toe being broken when you've had a stroke or something,
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Totally.
So when I left the military, when I joined the military, it was like this eye-opening thing that, I meet all these smart, interesting people.
Right.
And then I leave the military, and one of those people turned out to be my lifeline. Like I realized, she made me a better person.
Right.
And being in the Army made me, I worked as a generator mechanic. It was one of those things where I wasn't my original military occupational specialty. I wouldn't have been busy. But if you're not busy doing stuff, I don't know. I'm sure the Air Force is the same way.
Right.
The Army will make you busy. And usually that means cleaning toilets or doing unsavory tasks.
No, that's not necessarily my experience. I agree with you about the Army, right? Like if the Army people see you sitting around doing nothing, they'll just pick you up and make you paint rocks or whatever. I've seen that happen when I worked with Army folk. But like you can thoroughly just pretend to be working if you have an office job in the Air Force, which sucks in a new and different way. But yeah, they'll let you do nothing.
That's a great skill to hone. But that's
pretend to be working. I've done it so many times.
To look busy when you're,
doing nothing.
Yes.
I was like reading Amazon books and sometimes, just like, see, look, I look busy. I'm reading a book.
I did not master that until much later. Like in corporate America, it was always like,
always look
I'm not
busy.
going to say.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I had a job at a bank once. It was a temp job. I literally did zero work the whole day. Came in, they asked me to do these things, so maybe I did like 30 minutes of work from 8 to 5, right? Like, and then what I was doing as I was pretending to work was like picking pieces to build a new game computer. That's what I was doing that whole day. It wasn't fun. I would rather be working, Yeah.
Well, this is from the military, I learned this, but even in the civilian world, working as an engineer, it's like a day goes by a lot faster if you're working.
Engaged, yes.
Yeah.
Just engaged, yeah. Like doing something that is challenging, at least. Doesn't have to be fun.
Yeah.
It has to be challenging. Usually not fun. Okay, so all right, so you ended up having to you got out of the military, but it wasn't really a voluntary thing, right?
Yeah, I got a medical discharge when I went to Bosnia. A generator fell on my foot. I was cross-trained as a generator mechanic, which I was busy, so that's great. But a generator fell on my foot, not so great.
What was your MOS when you started?
63 Juliet, which was chemical equipment repairer.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Wow. It would be an awesome task before I went in or after. Like I'd be busy all the time.
Right.
But I literally saw once in like the 4 years I was in. It was like it's kind of amazing. They can put a rope you in like a river with like dead cows and stuff floating in it and get clean drinkable water out of it.
Wow.
But yeah, but nobody wants to use that unless there's like, a crazy situation. So yeah. But everybody is kind of used to light and heat when it's cold. So generators were always.
Mechanic is like, you're going to be busy all the time. Yeah.
And I was a better engineer because I was a generator mechanic. Like there's this class, fluid mechanics, which, I could understand that you need so much fuel and so much air on an intimate level that I don't think a lot of women engineers have. Like they don't have that experience to build off of.
Right.
Like if you go through the Target shopping for kids, it's like there's a pink aisle and there's a blue aisle, and there's not very much interchangeable there.
Right. Right.
And I mean, I'm not saying that guides people all the way through life, but it is definitely, you're steered in a certain direction.
Yeah,
So it
definitely.
was like, we talked before about making assumptions, right? Like people would assume different things about me, not that I would be like, understand thermodynamics on a level like a like a diesel mechanic,
Right. Right.
um, and I think the military does a good job of instilling this humility at the same time as pride, right? Like I can do what I can do, and I appreciate others for what they can't do
Yes.
or what they can do. And I don't think I would have had that necessarily.
Yeah. That
So
was a wake up
yeah,
call for me too. Like the military has that 1-2 punch of you're a leader and you're a follower, right?
yeah,
So in basic training, they just beat you like constantly,
yeah,
berate you, tear down everything you thought you were, and make you humble, right? If you
right,
don't leave basic training more humble than you went in, then you shouldn't be in the military because that's the whole point, right?
right.
Right. But then as soon as you get out, then they tell you you're a leader, right? You're a leader. And sometimes a leader's job is to follow. So this is how
Yep.
to follow and this is how to lead. But you are a leader, right? It's like civilians don't get that. Civilians
I,
don't get that sort of like 1-2 punch of humility leader. You're a humble leader.
yeah.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
Oh, the best leaders I had were in the military because they trained them and because they were humble.
Right.
And I think I have encountered,
There's a lot of them that aren't. So let's
yeah,
say that too. It's not a
yeah,
universal, right? I mean, the training's always the same, but how you take it can make a different kind of beast. Not
definitely.
every military leader is a humble person. Let's say that. There's a lot of them
So,
that aren't. Right.
yeah.
Right.
So I think that prepared me in a lot of ways, in a ways I didn't anticipate. I was going in for college money to get that scholarship money, right?
Sure.
Right. Like
Of
that was the
course.
whole exchange of goods I was prepared to make, but I took away so much more. And I
Right.
think, oh God, we were talking about how like you're not going to complain about a stub toe when you've had
A
several
stroke.
strokes. It's
Right.
just not going to
Right.
happen.
Sure.
But also, it's like you realize, I don't know how about your military mission was like, but mine was like, yeah, I'm not going to worry about these perceived catastrophes. Somebody sent an email reply all instead of just, but because
Right.
I know what a real catastrophe is, so it
Right.
was, gave me perspective.
It took me a while to get there, right? I spent a lot of my career outside of what I would call like real life things that are serious, right? Like somebody's hurt, right?
Yeah.
Real life problems, right? Like I got like really bogged down in the bullshit of like, oh, this guy, didn't get his, purple M&Ms. That doesn't matter at all. But yay, let's have fun. Let's appreciate the fact that we're doing something stupid. And nobody's getting shot, right?
So I do think that there's a lot to, yeah, I'm agreeing with you in so many ways. I you talked about in basic training, like people you could just get beat up, right?
Right.
And in the corporate world, what I realized was I don't get intimidated by the same things because if a guy, I actually had this happen to me, a guy who is physically larger than me, which is not hard to do because I'm not a huge, like I don't have a huge envelope,
Right.
but he's standing over me and yelling, and I'm like, you're yelling at me and it makes me angry, but I'm not scared of you. Like
Right.
I had physically fit human beings yelling at me that were scary. And this
not.
pretty much, yeah, this is stub toe when I've had a stroke. So,
Right.
um, I took that appreciation. I don't get intimidated by people in the same ways.
Right.
And I don't know that, like, yeah. So fast forward my to 2018 when my mom falls. I was like in that rehab hospital. But at the time I was teaching class and I was, trying to figure out, I had worked for companies that I have a master's in engineering, in biomedical engineering. My undergraduate's mechanical engineering. And I have experience with automating things. Like that's mostly what I did in
Okay.
research and development.
Nice.
So I go and see my mom struggle, and it's 20 years since my accident in Bosnia, but there's nothing that had changed.
Right,
So
right.
like
But
literally
rehab
you'd
is the same. It's just like
yeah, like, and then
all
if you
on the
wanted to
all the
go to the
patient.
toilet
Right.
in a rehabilitation hospital, an entourage had to accompany you. And
Wow.
I was in a UN mission, so I had UN nurses. I had a Norwegian nurse that I was really close to. But like my mom, it wasn't, she had dudes, there was a short staffed. In 2018, they were short staffed. They're definitely short staffed now. Rehabilitation hospitals or healthcare workers, period. But
Right.
I was like, what do you mean? And I remember like the worst part of for me was having to have that entourage there, not having to
You
wait
have
for
no
an entourage.
privacy. Yeah. You have to
Yeah,
wait. Right. Yeah. I don't want to. If I gotta go, I gotta go.
right. So I'm sitting in there, and like I think other people on this podcast that you've had have been like had the entrepreneurship spirit, and I was like, yeah, I had no intention of
Building a
starting a
business.
company,
Right. Right.
building a business, but like Vroom Vroom Veer, I was going full ahead, and then all of a sudden I'm like, wait. And so then at the time that I witnessed all this, I was just like, I'll go work for whatever company's developing this. And then after some research,
Find
I
out.
realized nobody's developing it. So I got started a patent, and I we've obtained a patent. I started a business that did this because I was like, if not now, then when? And if not you, then who?
Right.
And I
It's
think
true.
that's a military thing, right?
Right.
Like
Right. Yes.
you don't want to volunteer for everything, but if there's
Here's a
something,
thing that needs doing.
yeah,
And I see it. I think I can do it. Right. Right.
yeah.
Who knows how the hell it's going to turn out?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So, uh, it's a little over 5 years later. I'm like, been doing this different thing, and I have much more appreciation for people who are not engineers. Like
Right.
marketing and business math, they have their place.
Sure.
And as an engineer, I thought engineering was the most important for many years. And now I'm like more of an appreciation for what everybody does, like what everybody brings to the table.
You have to get the engineering right for sure. But I mean, you can engineer like. Have you ever heard the story of the guy that made the really cool vacuum that actually works? Of course, I'm blanking on the guy's name. The guy from England. When he anyway. I'll think of it. My brain doesn't work today, but he spent like all of his money and so much time making that vacuum suction thing. And he had the same thought as you. He was like, "Oh, I'll go sell it to Hoover and all these other vacuum companies, right? Obviously, they want it because it's better, right?" Turns out, no, that's not how business works. They wanted to kill it. They were like, "Yeah, we'll buy it, and then we'll make sure it never sees the light of day." And he's like, "Oh no, you won't."
Yeah.
But anyway, right? So yeah, that's the way of the world. Is I think like. Once you have a product that's making money, innovation is not your friend now, unless you're doing it yourself in-house.
Right.
Right.
What? We saw that with the floppy disks, right? They were huge, but they worked. But there's something that came along that worked better. So they got smaller and then they went away.
Right.
And every company, like they innovated something and then they're like, they didn't want things to change.
Right.
And when they did, it was like,
Well,
ugh.
that's over now. Right. Exactly.
Yep.
Nobody wants to see the end of. It's like I've got a thing that makes money, and if this innovation comes out, then I don't. Right. So
Yeah.
they don't have the incentive to make that innovation happen. It just happens.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. It was when I started the business and COVID hit and I had all these challenges that I wrote the book. And
Okay.
the book was built on frustrations that I had in corporate America and then in the culture of the company. And it bothered me the whole time, but it was in bold relief when I started a company.
Okay.
Right. So we talked before about the assumptions people make, and it would be two-handed, right? Like it would be the culturalist people who dictate that this is how it's supposed to be, and you can't possibly. And then the other end of it is they would judge, like what you did based off of what they deem based off their culture is correct.
Right. Right.
And
Wow.
The imposter syndrome thing, I culminated. I didn't even know what that word meant. Like the first time it was said to me, I was in a business accelerator thing. Like, do you really have a question or is it imposter syndrome? And I didn't know what imposter syndrome was. At the time, I was like, no, I really have a question. And that's the answer I give today. I do have imposter syndrome, but it's not about like business. It's about more personal stuff because after years of being in male dominated field and not being told I was woman enough, I was being to not man enough. Now I feel, or I was too feminine. Now I don't feel feminine enough around groups of women because there's this idea of what a woman should be
Right.
and do. And, it didn't fit that mold. And,
Right.
um, so the more I talked to people, it was systemic. And then I had the time. So I wrote not like I had loads of time. Like I was weird about working 16 hours a day, 7 days a week to make time.
I think we all go through some version of imposter syndrome. So it's always,
Oh yeah.
because it's all like we were talking about earlier about that identity. Like identity is this huge thing that we carry around all the time,
Yeah.
And, you grow up. I don't know what me growing up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, aka the UP, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you come out of that and you have what, this child identity, high school identity, where mostly, it is what it was, right? But when I hit basic training, it was like a wake up call every moment.
Yeah.
And like you were talking about, like the people that you see in basic are this just rainbow of brilliant people and complete idiots, right? And everything in between.
Yep.
I had a guy who showed up to basic, when they do that, I don't know if they do it in the Army, but in the Air Force, I want to say it was like the first or second day when you're in your like barracks and you've got all your shit that you brought with you. That's your civilian stuff, right? Next to all the gear they gave you. They make you dump everything out and spread it out on your bed and all around your locker and your bed, right? And they call it like a shakedown, right? And it's like, you can't have any illegal prohibited items, nunchucks, weapons, guns, right?
Yeah.
This guy had like ninja throwing stars. And the TI was like, what are those? And he's like, those are ninja throwing stars. and he says,
Like one has.
yeah. And the TI just kind of like snickers a little under his breath. And he's like, what are those for? And he says, total destruction. That actually happened. This is like life is a movie now, and everybody is trying not to laugh because we're at attention, and he went home. He wasn't in the military anymore after that day.
Like there's a lot of weeding out that goes through at Army basic training for exactly the same reason. Yeah. But it's amazing to me the people they don't throw out. Like we talked before about you get the recruit who doesn't know how to wash their ass. Wow. And the recruit that is amazing at stuff. Mm. And you meet all these people at basic, they're thrown into this soup. And then you get to your final duty station. And I was like, how did you make it through?
Right.
They got rid of all these other people. How did you get here? But then, I would be dumbfounded at how smart and wonderful some people were. So I don't want to be too critical. People are people, right? And it's like Veterans Day. They're like, oh, I don't think you're trustworthy just because you're a veteran, right? Like I've known too many people.
We know that. Yes. It's not like it's the halo effect. Civilians just say, well, you served, so good enough, right?
Yeah. But, thanks.
Yeah. It's different. So let's talk a little bit about how you got over your imposter syndrome and how that shaped out for you.
I don't think I got over it, but I got better at dealing with it. And I think a lot of it is I talk about the 5 steps. And the first one is remembering your past achievements, right? But that was really hard for me at first, especially, again, I don't do.
There's another thing that, you in the military, a lot of times you're so humble, you just think that everybody does that, or anything that I did is no big deal.
Right. And
Right.
it's really easy to make this person an expert and make yourself feel like a dumbass.
Right.
Because you know what I mean? But I think this was when your previous guest talked about, just saying, I don't know, and
Totally.
how to change that to it's not clear to me yet.
Right.
And that is so powerful because it's like, in a way, my mental thing, instead of beating myself up, like, I don't know, say it's
Right.
not clear to me yet in my own head, my own self-talk.
Well, have you ever had that experience talking to people in the military that say you can't say those words?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a big thing in the military. Like if you're in front of a colonel or a general and you say, I don't know, it's like political suicide.
Right. Yeah.
You can't say that. It's dumb because it's sometimes the smartest thing you can say, right? So, but you just have to use the military euphemism of, let me go find out.
Yeah, I wish somebody had like given you those secret codes. And actually, that's through life. Like it
Right.
doesn't bode well if you're like, I don't know
Right.
now, like to anybody, including yourself. But to empower and say, okay, let me go find out, or let me
Right.
make that clear,
Right.
and know that it's a priority. But like, oh my God, it's so truthful. I love hearing I don't know because it means somebody giving you false information, but you're like running with it.
Right. It's
Like,
the worst. Yeah.
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 Years later, I have repeated stuff that I heard somebody, and wasn't true, but they said it with confidence. It would be better if they said they didn't really know.
Right. Totally.
It's not clear to me yet, but
Right. Just say you don't know.
right.
There are a whole swath of people out there that would rather just make shit up or guess.
Yeah.
I don't want to know your opinion.
Right. And I don't want you to guess.
And I don't want you to guess. How about you just say, if I ask you a question and you don't know, it's okay for you to say, I'm not a general, I'm not a colonel. You can say, do you want me to find out? Because I don't know. That's okay. It's okay with Jeff.
Yeah.
It's actually refreshing,
To Jeff and Sheila, just to make it clear.
And to be clear now, if we're just like talking about nothing, right, in a social situation, and the topic is, what's good on TV, make shit up all you want.
Right. Yeah.
But if we're talking about work or maybe things we want to do or things related to safety in your life, I don't know is really good.
I totally ordered 500 pounds of weight so we could test. And I think that's part of it because that it's not clear to me yet. I don't know how fast it will go with this amount of weight on it. But I think it's an important thing to know.
Right.
And I don't know that yet, but I know it's important. And I think that if you communicated its importance to people, and if they don't know now, they know that to go find out. And I do think that, I think
it's big.
Yeah.
So what sort of things did you run into that you're talking about, like the false assumptions and gender roles? I know we talked about it a little bit, but like get into the weeds a little bit. So like what a woman should be, in a man's world kind of idea.
Well, this is a woman in a woman's world. I had women assume that I'd love to hold your baby. Like, I like babies,
right.
But I literally had a sister-in-law put a baby in my lap, and I just freaked out, and every muscle I had tensed, and I think I handed the baby, who's much older now, to my cousin, who's a man who'd been in the situation. He has younger siblings. I'm the youngest sibling. I have never been around babies. I'm fine with babies, but I talk to them like they're adults. Little kids, I talk to them like they're adults because I just never been around.
Yeah. You're not acculturated to like mommy stuff. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
And I think that there's this assumption that,
all
okay,
based are nurturing.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And oh my God, my age, and I have short hair. So automatically people make assumptions based off of that.
Right.
And honestly, those assumptions generally tell me more about the person than they, whatever.
Right.
But like in the workplace, the things that I experienced were things like, I worked at a military contractor that actually, funny enough, made the generator that fell on my foot.
Okay, lovely.
And so later we're talking about generators. Oh, you wouldn't know this. This guy's a generator mechanic. And I'm like, actually, I have an engineering degree and I was a diesel generator mechanic. But it's not something that's assumed, nor should it be, about anybody.
Right.
But it was weird how the
You
look I would
know.
get,
Right,
like,
right.
yeah, of like, you really?
Right,
And it's
right.
that like, I don't know how to put that. Like, I don't know. To this day, I don't know how to take some of that stuff. Like,
Sure.
eh,
It's offensive.
you know, yeah.
Right.
And so the other thing is, and this is going back to, you know, the assumptions that are made. My eyebrows started disappearing, which women of a certain age, that happens.
Okay.
But I didn't know what to do about it. And instead of feeling comfortable in my own skin, asking questions about, like, okay, what are the benefits of different ways people, I didn't want to walk around with like the surprise look and rainbow eyebrows like all the time. But
Right.
I understand now why people do that.
Right.
But
We're still just
like,
trying to fit in, right?
right, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, don't make assumptions that people know. Not everybody does a makeup tutorial in their teens
Right.
as women, right?
Right.
Like,
Totally.
so, and it was hard to talk about the 5 things, my personal, is like, it's hard to remember my past achievements when I'm like, I just, again, don't know. It's not clear to me yet, like, how to apply makeup so that my eyebrows, you know, appear in pictures. Cause that was the first time I was like looking at pictures and I'm like, this heifer has no eyebrows. Oh, wait, that's me. You know?
Women have it so much more difficult, like, you know, than dudes. You know, I don't know if I could handle it. I really don't. I know you have to learn, you know, but like, eesh, wow.
Well, I think it's a double-edged sword because I'm judgy about stuff. Like, if it's a dude that, like, I don't know, is of a certain age and dyes their hair black like they're 20, I turn into this mean girl who's like, okay, Mighty Mouse, here I come to save the day. And deep down, I don't care what you know, if you feel good with whatever color hair, do that. Rock it. I don't care.
Right. You do you.
But
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
but I'm judgy and mean.
Yeah. We all do it, right? I'm with you, right? Like, I've got a whole bag of judgments about, like, the way women look, about the way dudes look, right? I'm learning now that it's all okay. But yeah, it's like, okay, I'm going to have that judgment. I want to keep it in my head.
Yeah.
And maybe
like,
go tell a friend or something, right? And then,
right,
and then just go, hey, look, they can do them, you know? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is exactly.
Yes. I mean, well, who the hell am I? Right. That goes back to that humility thing. Right.
Well, at the same time, I was like, I would judge. I still do judge, right? Like what men do. I'm judgy about, okay, when I have to dye my hair, what color? How do I do that? How do I pick one? Because in my mind, there's going to be somebody who's going to be like, you look like Mighty Mouse. You know, like somebody who's going to be as judgy and mean to me as I am to other people.
Yeah.
So I think that all the time. And it was hard to build on stuff because I was like, okay, the way I ended up figuring out stuff, it's not like I'm an expert in it now, but I was like, I built a concrete countertop based off of stuff on YouTube. I can learn how to apply foundation.
Right.
And then I like, it didn't really apply, but I used YouTube in the same way that I learned how to build a concrete countertop. I learned how to blush, you know,
Sure.
like, and I don't know that I'm an expert, but I wasn't an expert building concrete countertops either.
No. You just need to be good enough to get by. That's called satisficing. Yeah. But I know I took shit still, like recently, like my last job. Another bald guy said, you know, you should maybe think about doing something new with your hair. You're not in the military anymore. And I'm like, I feel you. But once I got to this haircut, I never wanted to turn around and go back. There was like one deployment where I shaved my head. You know, guys call it one all over. You know, I was in the desert. It's really fucking hot. And, you know, you're probably going to be busy. The last thing I want to be worrying about is a haircut every week, you know. I was already bald. I was like combing things over. You know, who am I fooling?
Well, it's funny how I identify with that. I have short hair, right? And I was like, once I cut it short, I was like, I am not dealing with that again.
Yeah.
The only issue I have now is like I get these baby bird feathers in the back that stick straight up.
Yeah. There you go.
And
Yep.
like, but it's not like I was ever going to be like this long, luxurious hair. I didn't have that ever. It was just
Right.
a pain,
Yeah, it's just work.
especially in the 90s when big hair was like the deal. I could
Uh-huh.
never do that. I
Okay.
have thin hair, so I'm not going to have this giant set of
Right.
bangs,
Right,
which
right, right.
I realize now look ridiculous anyway. Like I see my older sisters with pictures and I'm like, so it's probably a good karma thing that I couldn't do that because anyway. But once I cut it off,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was like, I need stuff to sit down. I don't, I'm not
Right.
trying to tease it up and
Oh,
yeah.
I love having not having hair. You know.
Yeah.
The hair that I have is for my wife. Because if it were me, I would be like the guy with the razor in the shower, right? Just nothing, you know. I think my head looks pretty cool with no hair on it. She wants a little, so I'm giving her that. She cuts my hair, so you know.
I totally understand that.
So you know, if I want a haircut at 11 o'clock on Sunday, that we can make that happen. You know,
Yeah.
it's awesome.
And if she's got the cutting tools, let her do what she wants with them.
Oh, totally. Totally. Yeah, yeah. Well, we've got just the clipper set that you get at the BX. It's lasted forever. It's great. You know, on the other side of that, I'm going to say this because this is a gender role that I never thought I would find myself in. But my wife, she colors her hair. Every time we go back to Japan, she's from Japan, she colors her hair. And she used to spend like over $100 to get the haircut and the frizz and the perm and the color, right? And then she started getting, for a while, I don't know, like 3 years or so, maybe more. She was getting this hair coloring system from Japan. And I had the gloves on and we had the whole operation where I was like running it through her really long hair. I was like, wow, maybe I have another career here. I loved it. It was awesome. You know, I never thought I would have liked it, but it was really fun. Now she's changed. She's gotten like I told her I was like, this is a lot of work. I enjoy it, but it's a lot of work. Have you ever thought about trying that stuff that you just wash in and wash out? And she's like, what? She'd never heard of it. This like, I don't know. It's like the female version of Grecian formula. It's just like rub in and shampoo out, and then it lasts for a couple months, and then you're colored. She's just trying to get rid of gray.
So, first of all, that's a challenge that women of a certain age always seem to.
Yeah.
But I mean, like that's a military thing too. I think you just do things once and be like, okay, like I'm from Utah, right? So I ended up, my battle buddy in the Army was not from Utah. She was from Jamaica, and she got braids. And here I am making sure her braids were above her collar. And if they weren't, I'd clip them and seal them.
Okay.
And I'm like, really? You're going to have the white girl from Utah do this? I've never done it before, but
she trusted you.
Yes. And there was somebody like you talk about your wife at 11 p.m. right before formation in the next morning. You got to have this done.
You don't need an appointment. You've got a buddy. That's the best. Before I went on that deployment, it was a friend's wife that said, you should definitely get a deployment haircut. And, oh, by the way, I'll give it to you. Right. So this is before my wife started cutting my hair. This is when I had I'm trying not to be bald haircut, and I'm still in the military. So I get orders for a deployment. We're at a barbecue, and she's like, I cut his hair. I could cut your hair. It's super simple. I have the clippers. We could do it. You'd be done in 30 minutes or less, And I'm like, yes, let's do it. It was awesome.
I love that story, actually, because it's like freeing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Who cares what your head looks like on a deployment? And then once you get over that, then you never care about what your head looks like.
I don't know if they do this in the Air Force. Okay. But they definitely did it in the Army. They'd have this time, and this might age me a little bit, but there was a time in basic training where you got your onions peeled.
Okay.
And you'd realize that like they cut their hair of all the people, or the women would have to wear theirs up, but the guys specifically, they cut them real short.
Yeah.
And you'd
It's like
see that
down
not
to
everybody
nothing.
has a
Yes.
beautiful head, right? Like
Right.
there's divots and weird stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that it's freeing to, okay, all that stuff is exposed,
Right.
right? And it sucks to do.
But everybody's the same. You're all in
Right.
it together. Yeah. I think that part of that is like when you do that basic training experience, it's like it matters less because everybody looks the same. Right.
It's just like doing the
Literally
duck walk in the MEP station, right? Like if there wasn't other
Yes.
people doing that, I'd be like, is there a hidden camera somewhere?
Right.
You know, if you're doing it by yourself.
Punked. Yes.
But if there's a bunch of people doing it, yeah.
Yeah. So Sheila, this has been a blast. You should come back. Talk more about. So talk a little bit where you are with the with your biomedical thing a little bit, and tell people how they can best get in touch with you and find out more about your book. And
So my book is available in all the places. The name of it is This Seat for Me? And the best way to reach me is go on the website, isthisseatforme.com, and just enter your information and we'll start an email chat and I will not spam you. Like I'm not good at responding to emails to people I love, right? But I will make a point eventually to do it. It's just I'm not going to send you 7 a day.
good. Thank you. That's awesome. Sheila, this has been a blast. Thanks for
Likewise.
thanks
Thank
for
you.
your service.
You too.
Thank you. I hope you got some free lunch yesterday.
I did get free lunch because my friend Jackie paid for my lunch,
Aw.
but I didn't go to a place.
Okay.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah,
For Veterans Day.
I got nachos at a bar. It was pretty nice, actually.
Did you order the nachos or did somebody give them to you?
No, it was a free thing. That it was like a promo.
Oh.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
right. Yeah, there's tons of those. Yeah. So I went in, I bought a beer, and then I asked for my free nachos, and ended up paying like $12 with the tip for that beer. But that's okay. I didn't want to stiff the bartender, on her tip.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a blast. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right, you have a good one.
You too.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.